Now is Russ Vought, former Office of Management and Budget Director and Center for Renewing America President. Russ, great to have you with us today. Let's start with some of those comments that we heard. We heard one gentleman talk about his views on Big Brother. This definitely looks like Big Brother. The problem is it looks like a way for Big Brother to know much, much more about your private life than it has anything to do with the common good. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no doubt about it. There's nothing quite as coercive as the IRS getting in the midst of people's bank accounts. And the people that were interviewed were talking about the invasiveness and the privacy aspects of it, but it's more than that. This is a threat to these individuals' security, and that would be the entirety of those with jobs that would have $600 in their bank account. When we have, at the same time, the Biden administration is out there putting out guidance, and you just talked about it, that goes at people and uses the Department of Justice and the FBI, weaponizes them against concerned citizens. And then you have to give this kind of authority to the IRS, which has a history in the last 10 years of itself weaponized against the American people. This is not just an invasion of privacy. It's a matter of the security of the American people.
Yeah, Russ, you want to know what's going to happen with this? Look at the DOJ right now. There's your evidence of where this is going. But that's the important point. Once banks start feeding this information to the IRS, it could go anywhere. Is there any control on how this data could end up being used once it starts being handed over?
No, there is no control. The only control is the character of the bureaucrats at these agencies. And what we have seen in that the Internal Revenue Service that has a history of being weaponized against the American people just in the last 10 years. And so we see increased evidence of this in other departments. You just mentioned them. And so, no, there is no security if a proposal like this goes into effect, and it is just outrageous, and it deserves to be rejected. It deserves to discredit the entirety of the reconciliation package that is a monstrosity working itself through Congress. But this on its face is a wonderful lesson about the coerciveness of the Biden administration's agenda.
And you know who's up in arms about this? Community banks. Forget about the big banks for a second. Let's talk about the small regional community banks who are saying, number one, it's going to be a lot of work to comply with this. But number two, our customers are going to start asking the question, why in the world do I want to bank with somebody who's going to hand over my transaction data to the IRS? How do community banks deal with this?
Their hand, and the reality is that we haven't even talked about it until just now, is the complexity of how this would be implemented, because that's really not the number one issue with the problem with it, but it can't be implemented. This would put great red tape on community banks across the country, consumers that are being asked to bank with and house their money. All of that's going to have a disincentive for people to be able to put money into the system, to be able to grow their resources and their assets. They're going to have to think through every time they make a $600 transfer, even among accounts that they themselves own or between them and their spouse. They're going to have to think about, do I want to have the federal government a flag on this transaction? It's insanity. And
you have Janet Yellen out there selling it and selling it. Oh, don't worry, we're not going to spy. It's targeted to the wealthy. Your $600 bank account that we monitor is targeted to the wealthy. Yeah, right. Russ Vought, thanks for being with us today. We appreciate your perspective.
You bet.